No face, no trace. AI, data, and the player profile.
Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I am Jenny Ortiz Bolivar. I'm Sigma World's Asia Lead Senior Journalist and Reporter. And I'm happy to be back here on stage, day 2 of Sigma South Asia, and we're diving into one of the most important and controversial, I must say, frontiers in iGaming today, which is AI-driven identity. Now, I am with two good friends of Sigma here, and I would give them a few moments to introduce themselves and what they do as well, so you get to know them as well. But I'm sure you know Oliver has been on the stage as well on day one. Maybe we'll start with Oliver quickly.
Hi, good morning. My name is Oliver de Bono. I'm the founder of Quantum Gaming. Essentially, we are a PAM platform that integrates both Web 2 and Web 3 technology, looking at future-proof stacks within the gaming industry.
Hi, good morning. My name is Navneeth. I've come from India. I represent a company called LogNormal. Been in the online gaming space for the last 22 years, worked with brands like Entain. Earlier it was called Party Poker. Then ventured out into multiple businesses in the iGaming field, exited a couple of companies. Now with an AI-based, data-driven engines that we make through LogNormal, and the product is called Falcon Dive. Yeah.
Right now, our topic, I'm sure a lot of operators and iGaming leaders are very interested to deep dive in this one. But I want to start with Nav here. Nav, you've worked, your work centers heavily on behavioral data. How far can AI-driven behavioral signals realistically, replace traditional KYC? Are we replacing traditional KYC data while, staying compliant with regulators?
Correct. Before we get into what AI can do or AI can replace or not replace the traditional KYC, let's understand what is KYC, why is it important, why should we be doing it. KYC is typically understanding who the customer is, knowing your customer. The customer can be, there are different parameters where KYC or know your customers is required. Your age verification, your address verification, identification, email, mobile number. All of these information are key pointers to know who the customer is.
Yeah.
This is not a good to have feature. It is needed. It is compliant. It is the requirement of the regulators, right? The regulators and the compliance team and the AML, all of these need to know who the customer is, right? While that's the customer, they are AI-driven behavioral indicators, which actually enhances KYC. It cannot replace KYC. Right? So when we're talking about behavior parameters, we're talking about what is he doing in a particular section, what is his going to be the next move, prediction, analysis, recommendation are very important. So AI behavioral signals coupled with KYC is the indicator of who the customer is, what is he going to do for the regulators or the operators to take corrective decisions, right? Like I said, KYC proves who you are. Behavioral analytics tells what you're going to do next.
And it's very clear from what you said, Nav, that AI is just a tool, and we'll just use it, to make sure that we have, we analyze somehow the data correctly. Now, I want to go to Oliver here, because Oliver, you deal with operators across multiple platforms. How much player information do operators already have without, breaching, for example, GDPR, and why aren't they leveraging it more effectively? What's your opinion on that?
So I think the first question we need to ask ourselves is, what regulations are we looking at? This is a very important question. And to be fair, just as you said, AI is a buzzword, okay? That's all it is. Essentially, you need to apply it. It's an efficiency model that can make your job a lot faster. when breaching KY, talk about GDPR. Okay, I mean GDPR again. Regulators wanted to push basically, don't share players' data. It's a really simple thing, and what I want to backtrack towards is the use of AI in these scenarios are creating prediction models that make your job easier. In a traditional platform or Web 2 PAM, what we used to do is extract mass amounts of BI data, put that into several different models, and then try to come up with a result. But we need to know what we're looking for. If we feed this into AI, then AI simply does that job faster for us and creates better prediction models. Now, what you can do in today's market, what I believe is, one, you can utilize AI to better predict player preferences and patterns without the need of going into contact information of that player. One thing that we are doing today is thumbprinting. You know, a player is coming from certain countries at certain times using certain devices. You can already utilize that data, feeding it into an AI model to tell you what is the likelihood of this player doing X or Y. You create the model. Before those players have even signed up, you have a substantial amount of data on them. So it becomes a little bit easier to confine, to safeguard, let's call it their KYC data and sign-up data, before they've actually become a player. You've analyzed who this user and individual is. So, I mean, GDPR and AI, there's not so much of a great link over there. You know, GDPR is simple, do not breach the player's data. It's really simple. But when it comes to utilizing AI, you can simply assess their behaviors and likelihoods a lot better.
Right now, okay, you want to add to that, Nav? No, I'm actually going back to you, Nav, because I want to talk about, turning data into actionable experiences, because many operators collect, I'm sure you will agree, operators collect mountains of data, but struggle to operationalize it. Do operators truly understand how to translate collected data into actionable player experiences? Where's the real, skill gap there? And how do we do that? Really turning data into actionable experiences.
Right. I think one of my favorite subjects. I agree with you. Lot of operators collect a lot of data, right?
Okay.
Like Oliver also agreed. The buzzword right now is AI. The buzzword right now is ML, right? Operators want to use it. They are at a stage where they're still figuring out what is the use case that we can use AI in. People who have figured out what is the use case are trying to figure out the tools now, what tools can be implemented. And everybody is in the phase of figuring out in the whole AI ML world, right? So they want to use AI, they want to be relevant, they want to be upscaled, but they don't know how how that happens, right? So let's understand what the transition of data over the years. Earlier it was database, then they were data lakes and data warehouses where reports were run. BI teams used to get involved, they used to make reports, send it to each of the silos, can be a casino silo or a CRM silo or an AML silo, or there are different silos in a company, and BI team used to send out reports. Then came the dashboards. So what's happening is when we are talking about BI, we are talking about dashboards and all, they are explaining what happened yesterday. Yeah. They aren't talking about what's going to happen now. Mm-hmm. They aren't going to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. It's not predictive. It is not real-time analytical. AI, on the other side, is analytical, it predicts, it recommends, right? So it's very important that operators, while collecting the information, also know how to use it. What are the tools they can use? There are a lot of platforms out there. We have a platform where we help operators with natural language based analytical bot, something like a ChatGPT, where you can go and ask question about any of your data points, any of the KPI, it analyzes, predicts, and recommends, right? Then we have the real-time dashboards where we work on an agentic framework where every KPI, every data point is assigned with an agent, and the agent's job is only to check the anomaly, report it back, and the prediction and analytical engine analyzes, predicts it, and then recommends real time. So imagine in a sports book where the margins are going, you always today, most of the operators work on BI systems where the damage is done, right? Now,
Reactive.
so reactive. There's absolutely reactive. So from there, we are moving into a real-time phase where we are seeing that, okay, the margins are going down, and this is the action that you need to take, right? Or they can be a situation where this player started walking on the fraudulent path, and next possible steps are these, take an action, right? So these are the things that you need to, the operator needs to do. There are a lot of gaps, right? There's an operational gap where every silo is looking at their own truth, right? Casino silo is looking at their own set of KPIs and data. Sportsbook is looking at their own KYC and data.
Yeah.
I mean, every silo is looking at different truth. There isn't a constant truth across the whole system, you know? So it has to be standardized. It has to go through the whole rigmarole of understanding who the player is, what's happening, real-time information, and most importantly, identify the right tools, deploy the right tools. Not only deploying the right tools, but you also need to teach the people how to use the tools. Right now, what's happening is, this fancy word, AI, it's an AI-driven system. Let's go ahead, deploy it, data architecture, change everything. But ultimately, if you don't train your people, I mean, every tool can fail, right? It's just not AI. Any tool can fail if there isn't any acceptance or, training for your people. So that's very important. So yeah, in essence, what I'm saying is, while operators collect data, they need to use specific tools for specific use cases for them to see outcomes and results.
Right now, I am curious to pick Oliver's take on this. Turning data into actionable experiences. What's your take on that?
So, as I said earlier, I mean, ultimately, AI is a means to accelerate a process that is already in place. Your entire BI teams work around the clock assessing which key factors or key behaviors of a player are relevant to either maintaining that player, increasing the value of that player. So, as we stated earlier, you first need to understand what your target is.
Yeah.
So there's two very different scenarios over here. You can utilize AI to better a player's experience, to better their loyalty, or you can go the other way. You can improve your KYC process, or let's call it fraud process. There's a lot of parameters that we use in BI to determine, let's call them red flags. Change in betting pattern behavior. These are all variables that when fed into a good AI model simply process faster. That's what the benefit of AI is. It's not going to change something we already do, it's just going to increase the efficiency. Now, what I do want to switch to is there's a massive benefit of, let's call it, allowing players to remain somewhat anonymous. So this is kind of where the whole, regulation, KYC concept changes. There are markets let's call it, in today's world, where we don't have registration before the player can deposit. I mean, the pay and play market. How do we do that? We get that data directly from the bank. And this is actually quite interesting because the player coming on board directly to us, we have to determine what experience we want to give them, how much we're going to suggest that they deposit. So we need to gather as much data as we can on the market in question to promote the right games to those individuals, but we don't have very much to go on. This is similarly to what I was mentioning before, thumbprinting. So if you look at today's market, it's changed. KYC is a requirement in the regulated space, right?
Absolutely.
But if you're looking at some of the largest brands in the industry today, the whole point of crypto gaming allowed millions of players to remain anonymous. How do you assess, those players? You can only go with behavior. So there is a very key question. I think we need to ask ourselves what we're targeting. The buzzword AI doesn't really change very much for us unless we know what we're targeting. Is it fraud, ensuring KYC, better PEP checks, or increasing loyalty and player value? There's a lot you can do. As you said yourself, there's multiple segments you can apply AI to. I think the first question is, what do you want to improve upon?
Yeah. That's a very interesting thing that you point out, having players anonymous. And well, it's already happening. As you've mentioned, we have, crypto gaming or the blockchain gaming. people can be anonymous, right?
I just want to be clear, that's outside the regulated
Yeah.
space because regulators do require a minimum amount of data for you to collect, age checks included.
While I agree that there are markets or crypto gaming where people want to stay anonymous, but at the same time we also need to understand if an operator has to serve a customer, he needs to understand the behavior patterns of the customer, right? So the behavior pattern comes from once he logs in, right? Till the login, you were talking about KYC, which I agree, right? Beyond that, it has to be the behavior of the player in that particular session, in that particular time, for them to take corrective actions or increase LTV or increase ARPU or whatever it is. Like what you said is absolutely right. Understand what is the KPI that you want to target, and basis which you can optimize your data models or your LLMs.
And I guess eventually, as an industry, this is something that we need to look into, right? As we move forward to, with regulated markets, and I think regulators need to look into as well, right? Now, I want to ask Nav here, if this is hypothetical, of course, if AI becomes central to identity decisions, mistakes are inevitable. Who is liable if AI misclassifies a player? I think
so-
Oliver wants to answer as well, but we'll give Nav
Continue.
Go ahead,
his
Oliver.
time, okay?
Jen, I really like this one, and I'll tell you something. We were working on a model, and this is why I wanted to jump in. So AI, again, buzzword. You can use AI to determine a behavior. Now, there's a very big difference between suggestive behavior, i.e. the AI is saying, based on these results, you should do X, and allowing AI to be autonomous. Here is the fundamental difference. If I use AI to analyze my player behavior and give me a suggestion, I'm still responsible to initiate that
It's
suggestion.
the human factor still, right?
Absolutely. Please understand, AI, you can use AI, but you cannot outsource responsibility, right? You can use the AI, but it is you as an operator responsible for whatever the AI does, right? It's like you're blaming Google Maps for showing you a wrong direction. Come on,
You can complain about it online, but 100% agree. But then you as the operator are taking responsibility. If you say, for example, I'm going to allow my AI algorithm to send out CRM campaigns. What happens when those campaigns hit self-excluded players? Now you're in breach of your license. What are you going to do? Say, oh, the AI did it. And these things are possible. In theory, with good systems built, it shouldn't happen. But these things are possible because we're using a set of information to determine, let's call it a segment of players.
Yeah.
But every player, every little bit of information placed into that segment is based on, let's say, the initial KPIs. But now we go back to GDPR that you mentioned before, because maybe some of those emails had opted out of campaigns. Now I'm in breach of GDPR because AI has decided those players belong in that campaign. Again, these are tech models. They can go wrong. And I think the most dangerous thing a company can do is become too reliant on automated systems.
Yeah, regular checks, regular testing, regular optimization should need is must and should for any AI-driven businesses, right? That's one, and for any major KPI, any major model that you're using, I think human eye is very, very, very important, right? Unless and until you the use case is not determined, the results are not seen, it is very difficult or sometimes dangerous to rely completely on AI. Hallucination on the other side, right? Data hallucination and data hallucination driven wrong triggers impact players, customers, operators' licenses, like what you said.
100%.
Right?
And we've seen this in the past, but there's a human element over there. The issue that I think people need to determine, once you make a machine a bit more autonomous, how big can that mistake be? If my CRM executive sends out one bad campaign, we can retract it, we'll apologize. But without the human element to safeguard your marketing, because ultimately, if we're talking about GDPR, it's really coming down to marketing. But how big can that mistake be? If you've got a database of 10 million players and everyone gets the wrong email, it's far greater than a single CRM campaign. Or payout approvals, or let's call it, I don't know, missed KYC checks, underage gambling. There's so much that can go wrong, which is up to the operator to build a model that safeguards their license. Now, if we want to shift into the unlicensed space, there's a lot less that can go wrong. And most of the time, we don't really care much about the player's KYC. We don't operate in that space, but I know many, many brands that have been very successful and then eventually shift over to a regulated space. But what happens over here? We will only apply AI models in that case to increasing the LTV of the user. Beyond that, it's not very interesting. So again, what is your KPI? How do you intend to use an automation system? Because ultimately, that's what it is. If we really want to go into, let's call it the future of AI, it will make assumptions and trigger those assumptions. So it's a combination of machine learning and automation.
I think it's very...
One point I'd like to add, which in my own experience I faced, and I think it's very, very important. AI analyzes, AI predicts.
Yeah.
But along with that, that alone is not enough for an operator to take decision, right? While AI predicts, BI has to explain. It has to give evidence. It has to give trends. A combination of prediction and the reasoning will let operator take the decision that they need to take. What do you say?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the beauty of it. We basically, as a platform, collect about 400 data points on a user. It will take an army of BI analysts to go through every player's behavior.
Sure.
But here's a simple thing you can do. Let's say you're looking to increase the value of a player. If you're in the industry for long enough, you know the longer a player spends on your site, the greater your opportunity to make money with that player. The LTV increases. So a very simple KPI, session length. You can ask a model to look at session length and which games or which products, which bonuses led to greater session length. i.e., I will now promote that to my users that have a shorter session length to increase their LTV on the casino. So yeah, it's always coming down to the right model and application. But you need to know what you're looking for. Just saying AI doesn't mean anything to an operator.
Yeah, and that's very clear. Again, we go back to that point that AI is here. We use it now. AI is a tool, but human intervention, we still need it. We can't let AI decide. Again, we can't blame AI for whatever, right? Now, I want to go to, you've mentioned being anonymous, Oliver, earlier. But let's talk about transparency. If, AI, again, it's hypothetical. If AI becomes the primary identity layer, should players have the right to view, edit, or delete their behavioral profile?
So we know that in most systems today, this already exists. You can remove any history you want. You can remove cookies. It's already there. I don't think it makes much of a difference to the player if he knows that that company is using AI. I mean, let's talk about something really basic, Netflix. Netflix is tailoring to give you a more personalized experience. The point of AI is to increase that service because ultimately you're servicing the customer. So I don't think it changes very much whether you're using AI to give a player the right. That right always exists within the regulated space. So it doesn't matter if AI is involved or not. The player will always have that right. I don't want you to keep my data. I have the right to be forgotten, one of the key factors, within the new EU directives. Well, not new now, but so AI is just a tool to improve your efficiency towards determining what a player wants. It's like going from typewriters to computers. We're now going from standardized systems to AI systems. AI is just a very efficient tool to process mass amounts of data. But if we want to take it a step further, it's when those decisions become autonomous and the machine starts learning that, I wouldn't say we're there yet. I had said this in a panel a while ago. I think the world is at, if anybody remembers that we had kind of HD-ready TVs, that's where we are with AI. We're at HD-ready. And I think the next step is when the machines start, suggesting that behavior to us. But you still need to give the machine what you're looking for. If you're using ChatGPT and you give it a bad prompt, you're not going to get the answer you're looking for. Prompting is very, very important. So again, the model you want to build counts for everything.
Now, final core question for both of you. How can operators balance personalization ethical AI deployment and regulatory compliance while still protecting player trust. Nav, please.
Sorry.
Yeah, so how can operators, balance personalization, AI deployment, and regulatory compliance?
Like I said, AI can be used in multiple use cases, multiple KPIs in a particular iGaming setup, right? Um, how how can regulatory use it, or how important? Um, so basically, what we are trying to tell is the behavior can be analyzed. KYC, like previously that I told you, that it cannot replace it, but it only can enhance it. All of these parameters are triggers or information that is fed into an AI model for you to determine a player behavior, player value for the system. And I think that's evolving over a period of time. Companies have moved from using a public LLMs to creating their own LLMs for more of a data security. And right now, instead of using like a public LLM where the information is going out of your infra into the public domain, there are tools and systems where now are coming and getting deployed on your own platform for data sovereignty and data security, so the data does not get out of your infra, but the results are as seamless, as good as what we are using as. So I think over a period of time, all the LLMs will be fine-tuned, will be learning. I think things like edge computing coming into picture, where now you do not even need to run the LLMs on the cloud. They are getting executed on your own device, which means that information does not leave your device. All your PII information is there on your device, right? So when the information is not going out of your device, there is no problem at all, right? And federated learning, where now the LLMs are being trained on models across devices, right? So once a model is trained across devices, all the devices get updated. So with federated learning, I think the training of the LLMs are much faster and much efficient.
Correct, 100%. But I'll give you a little bit of food for thought on this one, especially when the regulators are going to kick in. And I mentioned this in a panel a while ago, and I can guarantee in the next 24 months that at some point this will need to be addressed. AI can be a force for good, but it could also be a force for bad. How? One key element that we've been looking at is these, let's call it advanced AI systems, will eventually be able to track potential gambling addiction. How so? There are patterns. At what point are we not allowed to send bonuses to those users, or even worse, abuse that information to take advantage of those addictive behaviors? So it's a gray area. You can use any tool you want. At what point am I determining that I want to give the user a better experience, or I simply want to make more money from the user? This is when the regulators will step in. Though I don't think it's crossed the thoughts of many of the regulators, but it will start happening very soon, because data is a superpower. I mean, look at what's happened. Just to go off point a little bit, elections are controlled through data. Imagine what you could do if you knew that 40% of your database had potentially gambling addiction traits, and that you could take advantage of those traits. What do you do then? Do you say, oh no, I won't send any marketing material to these users? So again, force for good, force for bad, but the only thing that we're determining here is what KPI you're putting into the algorithm.
While we are putting the KPI, we also need to define the boundaries of the AI, right? If the boundaries are not defined, then things like these will happen.
And
right?
that's when the regulators
very,
will
very
step in.
dangerous. Absolutely.
And I guess that's why it's important that we're here, Sigma South Asia, and we're discussing this. And I hope, this message will also go to our operators, our iGaming leaders, and at the same time, the regulators. It's really our ecosystem working together. Now, again, thank you so much, Oliver and Navneeth. You know, I've learned so much, and I'm sure our audience here learned so much from your insights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.